I'm Mary.
And I'm Imani.
And this is episode 3 of our podcast.
What?
Still going. Crazy.
We have not been canceled yet.
By ourselves.
By ourselves.
So, in case you haven't listened to our other episodes or you just forgot, what is Ya Book Club? Essentially, it's a podcast where the two of us pick a young adult novel, read it, and then we get together to rant about it, to analyze it, to just discuss it.
And sometimes we pick a book that we both loved as kids, or one that doesn't get as much love as it should. So if you have any suggestions of books, please feel free to tweet us about them at our Twitter, which is It's Ya Book Club.
So this month we read Maximum Ride, The Angel Experiment. First in the Maximum Ride series, I think. It's The Fugitives, book 1, by James Patterson.
So, spoilers, of course. We're just going to talk about the entire book, probably some of the other books as well. This is personally was one of my favorites in middle school, and rereading it again was just hilarious. So please go check out the book if you haven't, or just be prepared for us to spoil the entire thing. But, it still doesn't, detract from the experience of reading it. Knowing what's going to happen, you could still read it. All right, let's get started.
Yeah. So, James Patterson, probably you've heard of him before. He's written a million books.
Yeah.
According to Imani, he's the Tom Clancy of other things.
I don't know what Tom Clancy writes.
Thriller mysteries, maybe?
I think that's it. There was just, shelves and shelves in our library that were just all Tom Clancy. And it's just...
Yeah. I think James Patterson's like that, too. He's written mysteries, he writes a lot of thrillers, he's written young adult stuff. I was trying to figure out how many books he had written, and the first answer that popped up on Google was at least 49.
What?
Which was... Yeah, so you know how Google pops up, the large text answers? I Googled, how many books has James Patterson written, and it said at least 49. They're we don't know. But according to Wikipedia, he's written 147 novels. He has 114 that have been on the New York Times bestseller list.
Wow.
So he's very prolific. He always has a huge shelf in, every bookstore and library. Part of that is because he co-writes a lot of his books.
Gotcha.
So I was reading about it, and a lot of it, he will write, a treatment of the story, and then give it to someone else who will completely, write the actual prose of the book.
Weird. Okay, so he just, writes the plot and, the beats, and then somebody just, writes...
I think so.
Wow. Does that count?
I don't know. I was reading a blog post about someone who didn't think it counted and thought it was very, just trying to make money, which is a valid argument. But she was saying that he's, a collector of stories more than an author of stories. He has all these stories that he kind of made up.
Yeah,
but
right.
He either partners with people and puts his name really big, and then it's with so-and-so, or he hires a ghostwriter, which is a job, but then he just says that he wrote it.
That's just so strange.
Yeah.
I get it. If you go through 147 of them, obviously you didn't write every word, but,
Yeah.
To me, it would be, far more acceptable to, write a first draft, and then, somebody else comes along and, cleans it up.
It's interesting. It's definitely, he's super successful business person. He's, the highest best-selling author.
Wow. Interesting.
I don't know if ever, but, currently. He's surpassed Stephen King, he's surpassed J.K. Rowling in the amount of money he's made from his books. But it is a little bit it seems like it would become formulaic after a while. I haven't read enough of his stuff.
Me neither. There was another series that I don't actually know if it was him still, but it was Witch and Wizard or whatever that was also young adult, and then the whole Maximum Ride series. But everything else just seemed so, not my style as a 12-year-old.
Yeah, it's a lot of, Alex Cross, gritty murder investigations and thrillers.
Yes.
And I also found out there's a new book called Hawk that's the next generation of Maximum Ride that's just come out.
Yeah, which is supposed to take place after Maximum Ride ends, which, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, the ending of it was just kind of is there a world anymore? I was really confused.
I never read the whole series. I read the first, 2, and the manga for the first one, and that was it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yes, I read them all. I think. I can't, like, I looked at some of the later ones and was like, I don't actually remember reading this one, but it had to have been the last one because, like, I think the world blew up. I don't actually, like, didn't make enough sense.
Spoilers, Maximum Ride failed her mission to save the world.
All right, let's get to the summary.
Yeah. Go for it.
So, okay. I'm so excited. As I have said many times in the past 5 minutes, that I love this book series. I read it so much as a kid, and also when I was rereading it, especially the first like 3 or 4 chapters, I basically, like, in my head was like, this feels so familiar. It's almost like I have all of these descriptions and like stuff like that memorized. Like, it was crazy. So crazy. But yes, so this was definitely an obsession when I was in middle school. The first book, which is my favorite's the third one, but the first one's like still pretty good. So basically you just like come into this world and it's like this girl and she's running from these things from the school, and then she like jumps off a cliff and has wings, and she's like wake up and it's like, oh, it's a nightmare. You're like, okay, classic YA.
Wow, this is like the same beginning as Raising Dragons. Just realized that.
Exactly. Exact same beginning. Except this is not foreshadowing as much as it is like showing her history, as well as like, oh, this is like her current situation. It doesn't reveal anything about herself that she doesn't already know. So she wakes up and she's in this house that's in the woods, and you find out that it's her, this 14-year-old girl named Max, this also 14-year-old boy named Fang, maybe this like 13-year-old boy named Iggy, a 12-year-old girl named Nudge, a 10-year-old girl named Gazzy, a 6-year-old girl named Angel.
Gazzy's a boy.
Sorry, 10-year-old boy named Gazzy, a 6-year-old girl named Angel. And all 6 of them live together in this house in the woods, and they all have wings because they've all been experimented on by this like evil institution called the school that's somewhere in California. And they managed to escape because of the help of this one, they call them white coats, but they're scientists. So this one scientist named Jeb took them out and like rescued them, and was living them with them in the woods for like 2 years. And then after 2 years, he disappeared and has been gone for the last 2 years. So they've been out of the school for 4 years. And they're just kind of like living their lives. They don't really know what's going on. They're just trying to survive. And then one day, the school has done a bunch of different experiments on people, and one of the other experiments that they did was making these like Wolverine type people that they called erasers. So they're humans, but then they can like morph into wolves, and they're also like 10 times as strong as any normal man, or fast and like evil. It's fine. Anyway, so they like stumble like they find out where they are and steal Angel, who's the 6-year-old, and take her up in this helicopter, and there's like this massive battle, and like the bird kids get whooped, and just kind of like wake up and they're like, Angel's gone, we gotta go after her.
Like, oof, we failed.
Right, exactly. So that like is the inciting incident that starts off the book, and we have like groups of characters that end up doing different things. So, Iggy is blind, and that's important. Max, Nudge, and Fang decide to go after Angel because they are the oldest other than Iggy.
And they're fast.
So they can do it, and they're just going to fly there, and it's going to take them 2 days to get there. And they're going to stop at this one place where there's these hawks, like Lake Mead. They're going to stop at Lake Mead.
That's just like their landmark meetup point if anything goes wrong.
Right. It's pretty funny because they explain away their like great senses of direction by being like, oh yeah, and we just always somehow know where we're going. Great.
It's a bird thing.
Okay, so then the 3 of them go. Iggy and Gazzy are left behind, and they are not happy about it because Iggy's like, just because I'm blind doesn't mean I'm useless. And Gazzy, just because I'm blind doesn't mean I'm useless. And Gazzy is Angel's birth sibling. So they're the only 2 that are actually related by blood. Everybody else, they have no idea where they came from. And he's just like, they took my sister, why am I staying behind? And so they hatch up this plan that like, if the erasers come back, we've got to like defend our home. And so they build this bomb, and they start doing all of these like sabotage things. So they like do some surveillance and find out where like the rest of the crew is as they're like stalking around in the woods. And so they turn over a car somehow.
They
like
put grease or something on the road and like crash a Hummer.
Yes, a Humvee, which is like that was the first time of me being exposed to that.
Nope, that is.
But yeah, so they like do these like sabotage acts, and then the erasers are like, oh, we're gonna like come find you. And so they actually eventually do come find them, and Iggy and Gazzy like ignite their bomb, and they're like, crap, we like don't have a place to go. I guess we're gonna go have to find Max and the rest of them. Meanwhile, Max, Nudge, and Fang are like flying along, and they're like doing their all happy thing, and then Max sees a girl being like threatened by this like group of guys, and one of them has a shotgun.
You know.
Randomly.
As you do.
As you do. And so she's like, I gotta go help her, and Fang's like, Max, don't do it. And she's just like, too late! And like dive bombs and leaves. And so then Nudge and Fang are like going to Lake Mead, and they're like, okay, we'll just like go to Lake Mead and wait for her there. So they go, and they like are waiting, and they find these hawks, and they make friends with these hawks because hawks like communicate with their wings, and so they like learn how to communicate with their wings with like hawks. Also, Nudge finds out that her like she sees in some file when they're like trying to find out where Angel has been taken, that her parents might be in like Tepisco, Arizona, and so she's just like, we're gonna go to Tepisco. And Fang's like, no, we're not. We're gonna stay at Lake Mead. And she's just like, well, I'm going without you.
No one listens to Fang.
Right, exactly. No one listens to Fang. And so then she books it, and Fang's like, fine. So he goes after her, and they like go to this trailer park, and they find this like woman that looks kind of like maybe she could be Nudge's mom, but like Nudge like hides in the bushes because she's like, I don't actually know if I want to like see my parents, because like would they even want me, because now I'm this freak with wings. It's like very emotional.
Yeah.
But then they get attacked by erasers, and one of the erasers, his name is Ari, and he was with them at the school, and he was Jeb's son, the guy who, yeah, I know, hold on to your seats. So the guy that rescued them had a son that was also like in the institutional evil place. But he was just this normal like 3-year-old child that like followed Max around, which is a little fuzzy about how that works. But anyway, they don't see him for 4 years, and the next time they see him, he has been transformed into an eraser. And they're like, oh, we didn't know that they could do that, because most of the erasers are like grown from like test tubes or whatever.
Yeah.
So then Ari is evil and hates them, and like trying to like tear them to pieces, and Nudge like sprays him with paint, and they fly away.
And spray paint to get away.
Yes.
So then his hair's green the whole time.
Yes. And then Max, meanwhile, back with Max, she dive bombs into this group of people, saves this girl, and then ends up getting shot because teenagers have shotguns now.
Teenagers who bother girls just carry guns around? That's
right, like who gang up on girls. Yeah, anyway. No idea what she did wrong. Like, never explained. She, like, is a super sweet girl.
Yeah.
And so then Max is, like, running around the forest, being all shot and all, and she's, like, trying to figure out what to do next, because she's shot.
And she can't fly.
And it, like, grazed her wing or whatever, like, it went into her shoulder and, like, tore some stuff up. She's like, I don't know what to do. So then she actually stumbles upon a house that she sees the girl that she saved, and she's just like, oh, she lives here, maybe she'll, like, help me? So she, like, goes to, like, the door and, like, knocks on it, she's just like, hi, and the girl's like, ah! You got shot! And so then, like, has her come in, and then her mom's a vet, and Max is like, oh, wow, that's, like, actually
very convenient.
Pretty ironic. Yes, very convenient. And so her mom stitches her up, and like she's just kind of like doesn't ask about the wings, and Max is just kind of like, yeah, they're there. I don't have, like, don't call the authorities, don't try to call my parents. I don't have parents.
She's like really chill, the mom.
Yes.
She's just like, not gonna talk about the wings, it's fine.
Right, like, I respect you as a human, and I think that you've been through enough, so, like, we're not gonna push it. And this is Dr. Martinez, and so then Max and Dr. Martinez, like, do a couple of things, like, Max has to, like, sleep for the night there because, you know, she's been shot, and also it's super convenient that they, like, heal really fast.
Very convenient.
So, very convenient.
For story reasons.
So the next day they go to the veterinary clinic. They go there, And she gives Max an x-ray to see like if anything's broken in her like arm, shoulder, wing area. And while she's there, they see a chip that's in Max's arm, and they're like, "What is that?" And it's just like, "Oh, it looks like something that you use to like track animals, but it's like very embedded in your skin." And she's just like, "Is this how they've been finding us? Like, do they always known where we are? Are we never going to be safe again?" And so Max is kind of trying to deal with that. And then Dr. Martinez hears somebody in like the waiting room or whatever and like has Max hide in the closet. And the guy comes in and is just like, "Have you seen any suspicious activity lately?" And she's just like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about."
She's like, "Well, I saw this animal that had this weird disease or whatever."
Yes, yeah, that was interesting. And like Max is just like, "Wow, Dr. Martinez is so cool." So then they like get out of the clinic and like the guy leaves, and then Max just like is like, "Okay, we've lost like a day or two, and now we've gotta like fly." Also, she like bakes homemade chocolate chip cookies with the Martinez's, and like that has like altered her life forever.
Yeah, she's like, "Whoa, these are crazy good."
Right, like
there's never been anything like this.
Right, in my entire life. So then she gets back up in the air and goes to Lake Mead. So shortly after she gets to Lake Mead and finds Fang, Iggy and Gazzy show up too, and so all of them are back together again, even though they weren't supposed to be. And they're like, "What are you guys doing here?" And it's like, "What are you all doing here?" And they have to like talk about things and whatever. So then they go to the school to try to save Angel, or they just get captured. I think they just get captured and taken to the school or something.
Yeah.
Like Iggy and Gazzy like are able to escape, but the rest of them end up getting taken to the school. And while Angel's been at the school, she originally just had like mind reading capabilities. She could just like read people's minds. And then they're like putting her through all of these like trials and stuff, and she has to like do all of these mazes, and like if she doesn't do them fast enough, like the floor under her like feet gets like shocked, and so she like is like in pain.
It's terrible.
And like everybody's super like over the top evil because she can read their minds, and they're all like, "Let's dissect her brain," or like, "We should up the voltage."
They're all essentially just like evil laugh, like "Mwahaha" in their heads.
Yeah, they're just like absolutely like the worst. And so then she starts being able to see what they're seeing, so she can see them set up the maze so that she knows how to do it. And she's like being housed in a dog crate. And like that's how they were housed when they were like younger, and like they all remember being like kept in dog crates. And so while she's in her dog crate, some guy comes up to her and is just like, "Hi, Angel, like, are you hungry?" And she looks up, and it's Jeb,
who they thought was dead.
Dun 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 dun.
Captured.
Exactly. Like they thought that like he was like on their side, and that somehow like died because of that, and so they all felt really like bad. And now Angel's like, "He's alive and he's here," and she's just like, "I hate you with all of my being, and I'm not going to talk to you."
Also, she can't read his mind, right?
Correct. She can't read his mind, which is like kind of like, ooh, what does that mean?
Do you find out later?
I don't even remember. It's like interesting for the moment. But anyway, so like Angel's in trouble. They need to get to her quick. They eventually get to the school because they've been captured, and now they're all in dog crates, and they're there. Max talks with Jeb at some point, is just like, "You are the worst human in the face of the humans, and like you just like suck." And he's just like, "Max, I have to tell you something. Like, this is all a test. Everything is a test. You're here to save the world." And she's just like, "What? Like, that doesn't make any sense." And so just like goes back to her cage, and
he doesn't really explain more than that.
He doesn't. That is all he says, and she's just mad, rightfully so. And so then she's in the cage, they're all in cages, and then they get transported to like this weird arena type area that's like has like an outdoor thing where they're gonna like run them or something. I don't know what's going to happen, but somehow Max baits Ari, who's there, and Ari hates Max because Ari is like jealous of Max because his dad always liked Max better than him, and it's just very complicated. But anyway, she baits him, and so he like kicks her cage or something, and like it ends up like rolling and kind of getting a little bit free or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then she gets out of the cage, she gets everybody else out of the cage, she like has them fly, or Iggy and Gazzy come with like a horde of hawks.
Oh yeah, they've made friends with the hawks, and so then the hawks attack.
The hawks just come and like attack everybody, and like the bird kids are able to get away, and so they just like fly and leave. And like a lot has happened. This is like halfway through the book.
Yeah, and you're already in chapter like 70 or something because the chapters are 3 pages long.
Right, exactly. It's great. I love it. So they like are very far away, and finally they like rest, and Angel is like, Max, I need to tell you something. I heard things in their mind. They kind of know where we came from, and there's more information at this place called the Institute, and it's in New York. And they're like, all right, we're going to New York.
From Death Valley.
From Death Valley, California, near the Badwater Basin. They're like, this is just like too good. Of course there's bad things here. But yes, so they're going to New York. And then suddenly Max just gets struck by this awful headache, and she's just like on the ground, can't see anything, is just like crying because she can't like function, and just like shaking, and everyone's like, Max is actually dying, what do we do? And she like gets all of these like things flashing in her brain, and then it's like over.
She's like, weird.
She's like, that was strange. And then somebody says something, and she's just like, what was that? And it's a voice inside of her head that's like, Max, you're gonna save the world. And she's just like, what? So now she has a voice in her head. Yeah. And so then they go to New York, and they're like constantly trying to like escape erasers because they're everywhere, and they always seem to find them. And then they end up like underneath this, like in the subway tunnel where there's like this homeless area, like a camp. Max has one of her episodes, and this dude comes up to them and is just like, dude, you're messing with my computer. And she's just like, what's going on? And he's like really mad and like in everybody's faces. And she's just like crumpled on the ground in pain, and he's just like, you're messing with my computer. And he like shows her the computer, and like the things that are flashing in her brain are like on the computer, and they're like, what is that? And they're like, oh, like we should maybe try to hack it. And apparently the guy like hacked NASA when he was in like,
yeah, and he's like on the run because he got kicked out of MIT or something.
Yes, but he also has schizophrenia,
so he's like very paranoid, thinks everyone's out to get him.
Right, and just
he's like just kind of a side character that shows up every once in a while,
and he like perpetually just like runs away, like he's like about to be useful and then just like runs away because he's
nope,
like,
bye.
Nah, like they're after me, and they're like, okay. So then they are like doing things in New York, and the voice in Max's head is saying, you should do something fun. And so like they get on a bus, and then the bus is just like, the stop is like, this is where all the fun is. And Max is just like, I guess like, we're stopping here. So they stop, and they like, erasers are after them, and they like blend in with this like school group or whatever, and like the erasers get stopped because they're like grown men and women, and they're like, sorry, we can't allow you here. And they like go into the zoo, and then also they go into this like gift shop, or like, sorry, this like toy store that they've never been in a toy store before. And so then Angel finds this like little bear angel that she names Celeste, and she's just like, I want it. And Max is like, we don't have enough money for food, let alone this like $40 little stuffed animal. Right. Like trying to be like a responsible 14-year-old. And then Angel just randomly goes up to this woman and just like doesn't say anything to her. And the woman just like buys it for her, and she's like, thank you. And Max is like, what just happened?
Like, what the heck?
That's new. She's like, what did you tell her?
And Angel's just like, I asked
her for it. And you're like, oh, like you asked her to buy it for you and she gave it to you? And she's like, no, Max, I asked her with my mind. And they're like, oh no, Angel can like coerce people into doing things now. This is not good.
And she's 6 years old.
And like definitely the most OP of them all. And so then they just kind of like ignore that and are just like, okay. And then erasers come and they beat up Fang like really badly, and then Max like kisses Fang.
Just
but it's just like really random, very out there, nobody knows what's up, and then that's it. And so then she like keeps on getting like headaches and like voices in her head, and like finally finds the institute, and it's like in the sewer system they have to like navigate, and she like has a map that she's like following that's just like impressed into her retinas or like in her brain.
Yeah.
And so then they find the institute, they see a bunch of files, and they like find them and print them all, and then they're like, oh, there are all these like children, or sorry, Nudge is like, come here, there's something in this room. And there's, like, dog cages with a bunch of other kids.
Yeah, like mutant experiment kids.
Right, and, like some of them look like mistakes. But, like, yeah, there's one other kid that has wings. And so they're like, okay, they, like, let everybody out. And then erasers come, and so they, like, are ushering everybody into the sewer. And then Max has this showdown with Ari where she ends up killing him. And then she's, like, running away, and Jeb, who ended up being there, crouches over, like, Ari's dead body and is just, like, yelling at Max, and he's just like, why would you do this? You killed your own brother! And Max is like, what? But, like, leaves because they're running. And so then she, like, surfaces up into New York, and they're like, where'd all the kids go? And Fang's like, the girl with wings took them to, like, somewhere safe. And so then...
It just left.
Right, and just left. And so then they're like, okay, I guess we just gotta save the world now. And then the book just ends.
And that's it.
That is it.
At some point they, like, get edgy early 2000s makeovers.
Yes.
To be in disguise.
They think that the erasers are, like, recognizing them, and so they, like, go completely, like, there's this free trial of, like, hey, like, we'll make you over completely for free if we can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're all, like, punk 2000s
Iggy
kids.
gets earrings.
Awesome. Great summary. A lot happens in that book.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with your summary, because I was like, so many things.
It's very, like, like, action-driven.
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of like, then they're doing this, then they're doing this, then they're doing... It's just, like, a stream of events.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, this now. It would work well as a TV show, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because it's a little more episodic.
Right. There's just a lot of things that, like, don't quite make sense, that they just kind of gloss over, which is okay when they're just, like, constantly moving.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, a lot of information.
Okay, so as you guys know, probably, we do not have sponsors yet, so we have been doing fake sponsored ads that are related to what we've read in the books. So, we want to give a huge shout out to our returning sponsor, Clothes for Wings. They sponsored our last episode, Raising Dragons, and they decided to sponsor this episode as well, which is amazing. And they wanted to announce that they have a whole new line of windbreakers that they've just released, both with and without holes for wings. They run a little bit big so that they can cover up your wings if you want to be a little more incognito about them in public. Or if you're just a normal person without wings, you can also buy them.
And
but
support
keep that in mind.
The Clothes for Wings.
Yes, this is a really important company that we care a lot about, and so we'd love their continued support of our show, but also you guys to support them as a company.
Added bonus is a pouch for dogs.
Yes! I almost forgot that. Brilliant.
On the Clothes for Wings have a pouch for dogs, so you can fly with a pouch, but not like a pouch that you put on a dog.
They might make those too. Who
that
knows?
Could have been confusing. Who knows? Next episode, maybe they will.
So, should we talk about characters now?
Yes.
Who are the main cast? I mean, we talked about them a little bit.
Yes.
Obviously, you have Maximum Ride.
Yes, they gave themselves their last names, maybe their first names as well.
I don't know, because, like, on their files, they're called those things.
That's true. But, like, who would name someone like Iggy? You know?
Or the Gas Man.
Or the Gas Man. But, like, he at least has a reason. Like, he has, like, unfortunate bowel movements.
But who would be like, there's this super interesting mutant child.
Right.
With wings. But Maximum Ride, is the, like, spunky leader of the group. She's like, I can't show any weakness, I have to be there to support everyone. Very, like, sarcastic narrator, like, since it's from her point of view most of the time, you get her, like, asides almost to the reader of, like, if you think this thing, like, you haven't actually experienced it, trust me.
Right. In chapter 1, she has a line that's like, note to self, give some subconscious a pep talk. R.E., better dreams. It's like...
Yeah, so all throughout you have this sort of funny narration from Max, as she's, like, trying to be fun and cool and also support her younger siblings and kind of be a parent to them, and she's really worried about them, but she can't show that she has feelings because she's tough.
Right, but also 14. So it's like balancing a lot. And then there's Fang, who is like the tall, dark, handsome, silent type, which like they literally can't decide who he is in the first book. It's just kind of like, oh, he's the like aloof one that like doesn't talk. There's contrasting like things about him. So like at one point he's just like, yeah, and like screams something and everyone's like, yeah, like mutants for the win, or like something like that. But then there's another time where like he says like a short description of something and Nudge is like, I think that's the most I've ever heard him say in my life.
Yeah. He's a little bit like, he's just supposed to be the like cool guy. Like, that's his
exactly.
personality.
Like, he is the silent type.
Like, he probably wears a leather jacket.
Right. He does wear a leather jacket. That happens.
Does he?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That is important.
I couldn't remember.
But yes. It's not that he doesn't care. He does care. But he's just also a 14-year-old boy, and, like, he's, like, responsible, but he, like, gets on Max for not being responsible. He's, like, kind of, like, the parallel of Max. So,
yeah, like the foil.
Right, exactly.
Is, like, in the similar situation, but handles it differently.
Yes. And so, like, she's, like, gotta save everybody, gotta, like, do this, and he's more of the level-headed, like, no, we can't do that. Like, you are stupid. But she doesn't listen to him.
I was just thinking about the, like, her trying to save everyone is a very classic, like, way you establish a hero as a good person.
Yes.
Like the save the cat thing.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, you have to save an innocent something, and then everyone loves you.
Right. And then it's like, oh, you are the hero. That makes sense.
Yeah. Then there's Iggy, who is super fun.
He's blind.
He's like a computer tech guy who wants to make bombs and can, like, fix all these things.
Right. His backstory is that they were trying to give him, like, laser vision and failed. And so now he's permanently blind. They meaning the, like, evil scientists at the school.
Yeah, not the kids.
Not the kids. But yes, but he's kind of the comic relief. Like, he's probably, like, 13 or 14. So about the same age and size as Max and Fang, but, like, not at all their, like, responsible level.
Yeah.
He just, like, does very dumb things, but, like, in a very endearing way.
Yeah.
I think my favorite quote from him is, like, after they get, like, totally demolished, he's just like, I feel like pudding in pain.
He's very funny and endearing.
Yes.
And I like that they weren't just like, he's the blind guy. So either he's just that's gonna be his personality, or a lot of times I feel like it's fine, but they do the, like, they're blind but not really thing.
Yes.
Like Toph, where it's like, oh, but he has super hearing, so actually it doesn't affect him at all.
Right.
Yeah, like, he's still very aware and, like, notices things, but he's also blind.
Right.
Like, it's still, like, they have to, like, be like, oh, Iggy, like, come this way, like, lead him when they're in New York, because there's so many people, and stuff like that.
I did like that was a factor, because, like, they had been in the woods for a long time, and so now they're in New York, and he's just like, I don't like it here. And they're like, why not? And he's just like, it is so loud, I no concept of anything that's around me. And that's, like, something that I have to deal with. James Patterson did a good job of, like, once in a while, it'll be like, Iggy, like, grabbed her, like, shoulder or something, like, and, like, that's how he was, like, or Iggy was, like, holding on to Angel's ankle or something, and, like, that's how he, like, is able to know where people are, and, like, it's not like, oh, like, yeah, he's the blind guy, but, like, he's fine on his own. Like, he's clearly led and helped by them. And they also do, like, a lot of different, like, digs at, like, something about, like, sight, and it'll just be, like, a pun, and he'll be like, oh, really? Like,
but I like that they're like, oh, you need help with this thing. We're not gonna be like, oh, poor Iggy, we have to take care of him. They're just like, oh yeah, like, do it without thinking.
Right.
Like, when they're flying, they, like, go and, like, brush up against his wings so that he knows, like, they're still around and stuff like that, but they just kind of do it. Like, they're used to it.
Yeah.
It's not like, how do we deal with this new thing?
Right. And and there's, like, only a couple of times where he's just, like, kind of like, I hate the fact that I'm blind and, like, that they did this to me, but then also it's just kind of like, oh, that's, like, enough of who he is that, like, they make it work. And then there's Nudge. She is, like, 14? No, sorry, 12. She's younger. She is not white. You don't really know what her ethnicity is. Like, she's, like, maybe black?
Maybe? It's very unclear.
She's, like, darker.
She's darker. She has curly hair.
She has curly hair. So she's either, like, black or half black.
Yeah.
Everybody else is very white.
Yeah. Blonde.
Blonde. Yes.
Pale.
Blonde, pale, blue-eyed, like, and then, or except Fang, who's, like, dark hair, dark eyes, but still pasty pale.
Yeah.
But yes, Nudge she's the one who has some idea of, like, maybe she has parents in Tepisco, and that's kind of, like, what she wants to see her family. But other than that, she's strong, but not as strong as Max, and, like, wants to be as strong as Max.
Yeah, she really looks up to Max.
Right. But then, like, her and Angel are kind of, like, buddies, and, like, they share a room, and, like, it's also established early on that Nudge doesn't, like, wake up well. Like, she's just like, She's
like, no, go away.
Right, exactly, when she wakes up in the morning.
And Nudge, like, partway through, after they make friends with the Hawks, decides she's gonna be a vegetarian, because she watches the Hawks, like, rip up all these animals, and she's just like, nope.
Yes. Like, she's their, like, adolescent, kind of, even though they're all adolescents.
Yeah. Like, she wants to have fun and do things.
Right, and she wants to go shopping, and she wants to, like, see things and explore, but, like, they can't do the things that she wants to do.
Yeah.
Then there's Gazzy, the gas man, who is named after his, like, unfortunate bowels. But, like, that's not really a huge part of anything.
It's not really explained or becomes a plot point. It's just like, haha, we tease him and then he has gas.
Right, exactly. And it's, like, not offensive to him. He's, like, kind of proud of it.
Yeah, he just thinks it's funny.
As most 10-year-olds would.
Yeah.
But yeah, also he and Iggy are like super tight.
Yeah.
And they like do everything together, and they're the ones that have like the weird like schemes and stuff.
Yeah.
And Max is trying to like keep a down low on that. Oh, also Iggy, like because of his hearing, he was able to like do like passcodes and stuff like that. Like if he's like heard somebody like do it, he's like, oh, I think it's like this key combination.
Yeah. Most keypads have like different sounds for the different ones, which like becomes a thing.
Right.
Like they hack an ATM.
Yes. Which is like it's like at least like relative to each other like makes sense. So
yeah.
But like yeah, Gazzy, and he's Angel's brother, and so he's like really upset at the erasers for taking her and the school and stuff like that, and is kind of just like wants to be macho, wants to be tough, but he's like this little 10-year-old.
Yeah. And so it's always really heartbreaking when you can tell like he's trying to be tough, but he's also just like breaking down and crying, and you're like, oh, yes. You can, like it's okay to feel
That's
things.
right. Yeah. Like there's this one point where they just had like a sucky day and like keep on getting like attacked and like can't find the institute, and like they're all Angel loses Celeste.
Oh yeah.
Because like Ari takes her, and then Max is just kind of like, okay, Gazzy, like what do you want to do? Because he's like having a bit of a breakdown, and she's like, anything, what do you want? And he's just like, I just want to sit down and eat at a restaurant.
Just eat a ton of food at a restaurant.
Right. And so they're like, okay, you got it, bud. And so they like go to a restaurant, but like order like an obscene amount of food. And the waiter's like, we don't think you can eat all of this. And they're like, no, we've got fast metabolisms. Just like give us our food. And they're like, no, I don't think you understand how much food that you're going to eat. Like you're going to still have to pay for it even if you don't eat it.
And they're like, yeah, we understand.
And like, yeah, we know. That's why we ordered it. And then like the manager comes and they're just like, okay, well, whatever. And then they like bust out their wings and just like fly out of there.
Because the erasers show up at this, like, fancy restaurant that they go to.
That's right, yeah. And then that's when they decide they need to get a makeover.
Yeah.
Because they're, like, in the newspaper.
Yeah. They're like, what is this stunt that someone's pulled? Is it advertising? Is it mutants? Is it aliens?
Right, yeah. And they're like, okay, we should lay low.
Yeah, let's all dye our hair.
Right, yes. So then there's Angel, who is definitely the most OP of the bunch. She can read minds, and then she can breathe underwater. She discovers that, and she has this, like, potential ability to influence people's decisions.
Yeah, does she ever use it besides that one time?
No, it's just that one time.
Okay. It's just when she buys a bear.
Right. And it's kind of like, oh, is this a new ability? And like, we kind of established that like, oh, they don't know the extent of their powers. And as they're growing up, they are discovering new abilities and stuff like that.
And like Nudge can do something with computers. She can like read the minds of computers or something.
When she touches it, she can see the person who was last using it.
Yeah. Just a very vague,
right,
but also specific power. But Angel just gets all the powers.
Yes. Angel gets all of the powers. That, like, becomes a big source of conflict in the future because it's like, she's like, I have the most powers, I should be in charge. And it's like, Angel, you're 6.
You don't have good decision-making yet.
Right. Like, there's more to life than, like, your capabilities. But yes, that is Angel. And then there's
Jeb.
Yes. Jeb was their guardian angel, and like he took them out of the school
and like raised them and taught them to fight and taught them I don't know what
else
to
fly apparently as well.
How he doesn't have wings,
right? But they're like, oh yeah, like they kept us cooped up so much that when Jeb finally released us and took us to like the cabin and whatever, he taught us how to fly.
Wow.
Because they'd never been able to use their wings before, which I'm like...
Maybe he just threw them off a cliff.
Right, probably. Why would a, like, Institute of Scientists create humans with wings and not test them?
Yeah, I know, right? For the sake of plot, I guess?
I guess?
Like, yeah, like, you have winged people.
Yeah.
Like, this is the thing people have wanted for a long time.
Right. And it's like, no, but we're not gonna let them use them.
Never, because they might fly away.
I don't know.
Who knows? These scientists aren't very bright.
And, like, Jeb has these, like, ideals or whatever that we're not aware of. Angel can't read his mind. It's just this, like, oh, I think that you're going to save the world and that, like, I'm right and you will see things my way one day. Like, all of this pain and all of this, like, you're safe
like, the
here.
ends justify the means.
Right. It, like, sounds delusional. Like, you there's no way that you can see his side because the, like, white coats and, like, the erasers are, like, actively trying to make their lives miserable.
Yeah, just, like, for no reason.
Right, and the erasers are, like, scratching them, like, through the cages, and, like, nobody's saying anything, like, nobody's, like, telling them to stop, and, like, all of the, like, white kids are like, let's, like, dissect these suckers. And then when they, like, get out of the cages and are, like, flying away, Jeb's like, no, you're safe here, you don't understand. And you're like, what? What?
Like, are you just gaslighting them? What's going on?
What's going on? Yeah.
At first I was like, wow, the white coats are just, like, such jerks. Like, this is super unrealistic. But then also, I was like, I mean, there have been, like, prison experiments. Like, the Stanford prison experiment was essentially that. Like, people have power.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're just jerks.
Right.
So, at first I was like, these are, like, excessively evil villains.
But, like, once you stop seeing people as people, then, like, you are capable of doing awful things without the slightest remorse.
And the white coats aren't really, like, the big bad of the series, I don't think.
No.
They're just kind of this force of, like, henchmen that's just, like, the erasers are the monsters. They're not really, like, Ari's kind of a tragic case. But both the erasers and the white coats are just sort of like a force working against them more than like, ooh, interesting villain character. Because you have Jeb for that.
Right, and then you have the director at some point.
Yeah, like the Institute.
Yeah,
What is it called? The Institute of Higher Living?
Yes, something like that.
Which, don't know in this first book what they do, besides experiment on children.
Right, I don't know if you ever actually know. See, I, like, read the books for the characters.
Yeah.
And then, like, the actual events are just, like, very fuzzy.
Because there's so many things happen.
Yeah, and, like, there's so many questions that, like, that don't get, like, satisfactory answers. Like, Max's voice. And, like, Jeb's idea that that Max has to save the world. But also, like, was Jeb evil? And then there's, like, the director. Oh, and then there's the chip in her arm. And it's just like, we don't know.
It's probably like, we're gonna set up for this in the sequel and then maybe forget about it.
Right, exactly. Or just kind of like, oh yeah, it was actually this thing. I think the chip in her arm, like, doesn't end up doing anything. I don't remember. They just, like, she, like, takes it out and then she thinks that it's gonna get rid of the voice in her head, but it doesn't.
Yeah, because in the movie it seems like, which we can talk about the movie later.
Guys,
it seems
we watched
like it's
the
like
movie.
monitoring. It's so bad. It's just very low budget.
Yeah.
But in that, it's like monitoring like their brain patterns or something.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But who knows if that's correct?
Who knows? Okay, but the last character is Ari.
Yeah, Ari's very sad as a character.
Yeah.
Like, he makes me sad.
Yeah, like, he's Jeb's son, and he
was
just
3
wanted
years
his
old.
dad to love him.
Yeah. And then they, like, his dad left with all the mutant-based kids and left Ari at the school. And so then they turned him into an eraser, which are the, like, wolf mutant things that only live for a couple years.
Yes. And so they don't know how long Ari will live, and, like, that was kind of the point of the experiment. But, like, they, like, insinuate that Ari chose to do it because he's, like, he wanted to be special like Max was special.
Yeah.
Because then he thought maybe my dad will love me more if I'm special.
Yeah, it's really
which is,
sad.
like, very, very sad. But he's, like, the only eraser that gets any kind of, like, personality.
Well, all the other erasers are, like, don't have a life before the school, right? Like, they were grown there. And they're test tube grown creatures.
Right, and they, like, are, like, accelerated in their growth. They get to be, like, fully grown men and women at, like, 6 weeks or something. And then, like, have a year or two of, like, rampaging around.
But Ari's sort of, like, because he's so emotional.
Yes.
And that is sort of an interesting thing to contrast with, like, Max, who's like, no, I can't have feelings, I need to be tough, I need to be strong. Ari is just, like, on the other extreme, where he's just, like, letting his feelings control everything he does. Even though he's been told, like, don't kill them or whatever, he still, like, attacks them because he's
right,
just
and, like, wants to hurt
full
them.
of rage.
Right.
Yeah.
And, like, it's established that it's just him and his dad. And then, like, Max has this whole family of, like, the other kids, you know?
Yeah.
That, like, Ari just, like, wants a family and he wants people to care about him. And he just, like, has felt like nobody has. And so he's just, like, a really sad, angry boy. And it's like, no! But it's, like, it's also interesting because later on in the books, it's more evident that, like, he is still, like, the mental capability of, like, a 7-year-old boy in the body of, like, a full-grown man that,
who
like,
can
turn into a werewolf. And it's just, like, really interesting
Yeah.
because, like, he's so much more powerful, but, like, has just, like, is still very broken and very childlike. And they're, like, him and Max, like, start to connect over, like, that a little bit more because she just feels really bad for how Jeb treated him. Because it wasn't Max's fault. And, like, you kind of, like, play around with the idea that, like, Jeb is her father.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering, because, like, there's no records of her family, even though they find records of everybody else's family, and so she's like, who am I? We don't know.
Right.
And then it's like, does the you killed your brother thing mean that he was your actual brother, or just that, like, he raised all of them, so they're siblings?
It's not always super clear. I feel like there's another person that, like, is like, oh, I'm Max's mom, but it was more of, like, she gave the idea for Max, or for the idea of, like, winged children or whatever, like, she headed up the experimentation and stuff like that, like, it was her brainchild, but then it's, like, maybe said that, like, Dr. Martinez is Max's biological mom.
What? Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just, like, really confusing, and I don't actually remember. I think Jeb is maybe her, like, biological father.
Yeah. That kind of seems like what it's hinting at.
Right, because, like, Max always, like, dreamed of, like, oh, but, like, what if, like, Jeb was actually my dad? At some point, at the first book, when, she's like, what's my last name? And he's just like, you just make it up for yourself. And so she was like, Maximum Ride. Ride is my last name. But, like, she was, like, secretly hoping that he would say it's Batchelder, which is Jeb's last name.
Yeah, yeah.
Be like, I don't have a last name. Like, claim me.
Hint, hint.
Yeah,
Am I your kid? And he's like, no. Be your own woman, you 6-year-old. Yeah. The family dynamics in this are very odd. Like, because Fang and Max are, like, a thing, like, romantically, maybe.
Almost.
But also, like, they all call each other their family.
Right.
It's very odd.
I think the first one has, like, the first book has the most distinction between, like, okay, like, this is, like, their family, and it's, like, no one else, but also, like, Max is the mom, and, like, Fang isn't the dad. Like, Fang is just, like, also older, and, like, Max just, like, mothers everybody.
Yeah.
But then there's, like, these, like, hints, like, of really random interactions where you're just, like, what? Because, like, also they're 14.
Yeah.
So, like, at the library, Max is, like, asking a question or something, and, like, to, like, the guy there, and he's just like, yeah, it's, like, on the 3rd floor, and she's like, thank you, and, like, walks away, and Fang's just like, well, aren't you charming? And she's just kind of like, what does that mean? Like, and, like, they're all just, like, so bad at processing their emotions the entire time. And then they, like, keep on adding these, like, male people that, like,
oh, no.
Max is supposed to, like, love, or, like, supposed to not fall in love with, but supposed to, like, procreate with, like, because they're scientists and they're just, like, thinking of them as a species. And so they, like, there's, like, Dylan is a guy that, like, they create to be Max's, like, counterpart, and Max, like, hates Dylan. Like, with the every fiber of her being. Because he's just, like, Mr. Perfect, and she's just like, you're the worst, Dylan. But Fang also hates Dylan, because Fang is jealous. Right. And then they, like, have this, like, falling out where, like, Fang leaves and, like, starts a blog or something.
Oh, yeah. That's at the end of the book. Like, I got the book from the library, and at the end, it's like, check out these excerpts from Fang's blog. What's going on? Also, the formatting of it is so old looking. Because it's got, like, the header with the, like, minimize and close tab and stuff.
At some point, when Max is, like, getting the chip out of her arm, Fang is with her in the operating room, and she's just like, I love you, Fang, and he's just like, what? She's like, no, And he's just like, yeah, like, you love all of us. And she's like, no, I love you, Fang, so much. Like, this much.
Oh, no. I feel like we're done talking about characters if we want to talk about, like, some of the themes in it.
Yeah. Go for it.
So, yeah, one of the main things that we see throughout the book is Max trying to figure out what it means to be a hero. Because she's meant to save the world, kind of the first, like, two of these that we have, what it means to be a hero and what it means to be a leader, kind of go together, because Max is like, I have to save everyone, I have to protect everyone, and that starts out by, like, both trying to be the solid rock foundation that never needs help.
Right.
That's what she thinks being a leader is. But she's also taking a lot of her cues from Jeb.
Yes.
Because she looked up to him so much. But she's trying to figure out, like, do I save everyone? Do I prioritize, like, the big picture things versus my family versus, like, there's a person in trouble right now, I should help them.
Right.
Even, like, when they save all the kids from the institute, there's this, like, we really should just go, but there's these kids here, like, what are we if we don't help them?
Right. Like, we're no better than they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she kind of has to, like, wrestle with this, like, I need to be enough and I need to be everything and I can't depend on anybody because, like, everybody that's not outside of here has betrayed us.
Yeah.
And, like there is even a moment in the book where they are kind of like, how do they keep finding us? Is one of us, like, reporting to them? And then she just kind of, like, shuts it down. It's just like, we can't think like that because as soon as we start thinking like that, then we just, like, will not be able to function.
Yeah, they just would tear themselves apart.
Right. She doesn't really trust anybody because, like, that hasn't worked out for her. But, yeah, has this, like, innate sense of, like, needing to save the world or save people.
Yeah, because she's a very empathetic person. As much as she tries to be, like, cool and collected and parental, like, she's very, like, reactively empathetic of, like, there's something wrong, I want to do something about it.
Yes.
Like, this is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She has a strong sense of justice. But yeah, it's really sad, and it happens a lot in YA that, like, oh, I'm the hero, I'm the chosen one, I can't have anyone else support me. Like, I'm supporting everyone else, and this is my job, and I'm the one that has to sacrifice, and I can't ever show that I'm weak or that I can't do this.
Right. And yeah, otherwise, like, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
Which I'd like to think gets better a little bit as the kids get a little bit older and she's able to kind of rely on them for certain things. And, like, I think she does think that she needs them, but it's not as in, like, I rely on them. Like, when she starts getting her, like, mental episodes and, like, can't function and is just, like, on the ground, tears streaming down her face in, like, aggravating pain, I feel like that's, like, super humbling for her because she doesn't want them to see that she is vulnerable or, like, mortal, you know?
Yeah.
Because they know that erasers only last a couple of years and they don't know how long they're going to last. So there was a couple of times where she's like, is this my body, like, wearing out? Like, have I reached, is, like, 14 years the limit?
Yeah, like, am I gonna die soon? Yeah, I feel like she has so many parent-esque struggles.
Right.
Like, I know that's a thing that a lot of parents struggle with, of, like, I need to be there for my kids, and I can't show them that I have baggage, too, because they rely on me. And she's sort of adopted this role of, like, I'm the person you can rely on, don't worry about me, like, you can always come to me for help.
Right.
Which is, like, cool. Like, it's not a bad thing, necessarily, but it's also not
It's
healthy.
noble.
Yeah, it's noble.
Right. It's noble, but it's not necessarily smart.
Yeah. Because she doesn't have anyone that she can go to for that.
Right, which ideally would be an adult, but, like, all of those are actively trying to kill her.
All the adults are either evil or really stupid or Dr. Martinez, who's strangely rational.
I think in the second book they go and live with Dr. Martinez for a little while.
Oh, cool. That's amazing.
And, like, go to school and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
But isn't the second book, like, school's out forever or something?
Yes, because they, like, go to school and then are just like, we're not doing this anymore, I think.
Okay, I see.
Or that might be the third one, I can't remember.
That's what the second one is called.
Yes, and then the third one is, like, saving the
world and other extreme sports. So, we could skip around a little bit and talk about, like, found family stuff. Yeah. Because that kind of goes off what we were just talking about.
For sure.
Because, obviously, they're mutants. The definitions of family aren't, like, mom and dad and child in a little house in the suburbs with a dog. Like, they can't have that.
Right.
And so their, like, idea of family at first was Jeb. Like, he
Right.
was, like, their father figure. But now it's more of, like, we all look out for each other.
Yeah.
We're all kids, but we're still a family, even though we're not related.
Right. And, like, they all take on some responsibility and, like, can take care of themselves to some capacity.
Yeah.
Like, foraging for food, or, like, when they're in trouble and, like, Max will, like, give some kind of command and they'll, like, execute some sort of, like, combat
like,
tactic.
Cool, yeah.
Right.
She'll be like, on 3, and they all know that means on 1.
Yes, exactly.
That.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Like, they know how each other works, and they know how they work, and that's how they function.
Yeah, and they're not just together for survival anymore.
Right.
Like, they put themselves in harm's way to save each other. Like,
exactly.
They are very pragmatic of, like, oh, we gotta survive, we gotta be tough and live out in the wilderness, but then they're like, sure, Angel, you can keep this dog. It's fine.
Right, yeah.
Because they, like, do care about each other a lot.
Yes, and Nudge wrestles with it for like half a second because Max is gone and they don't know when she was shot, and Fang and her are waiting at Lake Mead, and she's like, if something happens to Max, is Fang gonna stay around? Like, is he going to take care of us? Because she's like, it's not that he's like not nice to us, he just hasn't expressed that kind of like same instinctual care that Max does. And so she's just kind of worried that she's just like, will I have to be in charge then? Like, will I have to take care of Gazzy and Angel?
Yeah.
But other than that, like, when Max is there, like, she stands for, like, no mutant left behind. Like, we are going to, like, stick together and put each other first no matter what. And the rest of them just take that on.
Yeah, and they do that thing where they stack their hands on top of each other. It's really cute. They always do it before bed.
Wrists. So good. Yeah. I love that.
And so then when they don't do it, like, when they're all separated, it's so sad.
It is.
Like, every night they have this thing that they do. And so then it's like they really feel the hole left when somebody's gone.
Right, yeah. And kind of the idea that they have a family, they do think of themselves as a family, but there's also always this, like, oh, but there could be somewhere that I belong and that I'm safe and that, like, I could have parents. And it's just this kind of awkward that, like, nobody has, like, thought it out to its conclusion of, like, oh, well, if we did find our parents, then we wouldn't be together. It's just kind of like, well, we don't know who our parents are, we don't have them, but we just all secretly long for parents.
They want someone to take care of them. And they want to feel safe. I think
Right.
that's, like, when Max is with the Martinezes, she has this sense of, like, oh, you're, like, caring about me.
Yeah.
And we're just, like, making cookies, and it's safe.
Yes.
And it's warm and homey. And even when they were somewhat safe with Jeb, they didn't have that same, like, safety and comfort.
Right. Like, he was training them for, like, battle.
Yeah. And so that's really, it seems like what they're looking for is, like, somebody who wants them unconditionally and who takes care of them and where they're safe, because they've never really had that.
Right. And definitely the, like, wants them despite the fact that they are different and, like, very different, and being able to trust somebody to not want to exploit that.
Yeah, because even Jeb was, like, they found out was, like, doing it for some bigger reason of, like, oh, well, I was training you for saving the world. Like,
yes,
that's a good point.
One of the things I really want to talk about is, maybe you understand it better than I do, but, like, they were in the school for the first 10 years of Max's life.
Yeah.
And they are, like, they're in dog crates and they're being experimented on, but still somehow Ari is, like, following Max around and, like, interacting with her. Like, I don't know how he's interacting with her if she's in a dog crate.
I don't know.
Also, they, like, don't see them as human, but, like, still clothe them, like, I assume bathe them. Like, they didn't know how to use their wings until they escaped. Like, all of, like, how the school operated, I don't think anybody really has thought about.
It's very confusing, because, like, you could say, like, okay, when Jeb was there, maybe it was a little tiny bit better. Like, they still experimented on them, but maybe, like, they were treated with some decency.
Right.
I'm sure they got let out, like, how Angel was to, like, do various tests and, like, stress tests and, like, run on this treadmill or, like, do this thing.
Right.
But, yeah, it's just kind of like, it's an evil lab that we were raised in.
You know what happens in evil labs.
Just take this generic idea of an evil lab you have.
Right.
And add all of these things that we told you, and it's fine.
Exactly. And, like, that's how it is.
And, like, a 3-year-old's really little. Like, 3 is, like, you can kind of talk, and you can walk around.
Right, but that's, like, kind of it.
Yeah, like, you can communicate.
Right, like,
but not,
I'm sure
like,
I had
amazingly.
thoughts as a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
But it seems like...
I vaguely remember being 3.
Right. Like, it seems like Ari, like, bears a lot of, like, blame on Max, which it could have been just, like, in the 4 years that she was gone. It was like, well, like, this happened after she left, therefore, like, she abandoned me, she's the worst.
Yeah, if he was still, like, had the mind of a small child, his reasoning for why he was attacking them would be different. It would be like, you left and then things were bad.
Yes.
So I'm mad that you left, so I'm gonna attack you.
Right.
Because you made things bad by leaving. Rather than like, well, I have this complex where my dad liked you better than me.
Yeah.
And
I could tell that at 3 years old.
But, I mean, maybe, like, he is somewhat mentally developed because
maybe
he's, like, has the body of an adult. So
right.
maybe his mind has grown a little faster. I don't know.
It could be.
Maybe they told him all those things. Like,
yeah, or being like, oh, like, your
you.
dad's gone. Yeah, exactly. And, like, maybe he asked, like, where'd dad go? And it's like, oh, well, he went with Max because he likes Max better than you. Like, I wouldn't put it past the terrible, awful scientist to do that.
Yeah.
But then also there's, like, or in the 4 years that they were gone, there's 2 of them where they had Jeb, so 2 of them that they had an adult. And there's 2 years that they lived without an adult. And it's like, where's their food coming from? Like, and, like, also they're still they're very aware of pop culture and...
They have a TV.
But, like, and, like, not normal, like, references to or, like, normal things, like, how the world works.
Yeah, like, oh, there's an ATM, we need an ATM card.
Right, exactly. Which, like, they are cognitively very, like, intelligent, like, very capable. But just being able to, like, figure out how the world works, it was just, like, or, like, the first time that they drive.
I love that. They're like, Jeb taught me how to hotwire a car.
Right.
I realized the keys were in the car. Yeah, but you'd think there would be, like, big gaps in their cultural knowledge.
Right.
That they'd just be like, what?
Right, and, like, that's never an issue. Like, the issue is always, like, there are people trying to kill us now.
Yeah, that could have been really interesting.
Yeah, it changes the focus a little bit more. And it's a little bit less of a adventure and more, or it still is an adventure, but
it's not like action, fighty, gritty combat adventure. It's like, oh, I feel like an outsider even more. I'm not just a mutant. I also don't understand the joke that everybody's joking about.
Right.
Which I think would have been cool, personally.
Right. Yes, personally, for some reason.
As someone who often is like, what are you talking about?
Right. And, which I can't remember if that happens in the next book when they go to school.
Yeah.
And, like, are kind of interacting, like, trying to be normal. But, like, in order for this to, like, happen, you need to have somebody, like, teach you kind of thing, which they never have. It's just always them. Which, now that I think about it, maybe in the next book they do a little bit more of that, because they're living with Ella and her mom, and it's like, oh, like, we're going to school, and we're dealing with, like, teen stuff, like, Fang, like, there's this girl that, like, really likes Fang, and starts, like, giving him a lot of attention, and Max is just like, excuse me? Like, who do you think you are, child? Yeah, it's very funny, because, like, completely shifts from being, like, there's also, like, fighting and stuff, and the book's separated into, like 5 or 6 parts. There's one part that is, like, specifically them at school, and it's like, oh, they're, like, dealing with, like, random school things, and I think, like, maybe, like, Iggy gets bullied or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was, like...
That's so funny, though. Fang is the, like, mysterious stranger who's new at school in a different YA story.
Yes!
Like, you know, there's so many who are like, I'm a simple, slightly nerdy girl with my best friend who's very quirky, and, like, nobody notices me, but there's this mysterious stranger who just showed up.
Who just showed up in my life.
He's an edgy bad boy who's kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally what it is.
Yes. So good. This episode is also brought to you by the Institute for Unleashing Your Pet's Hidden Potential. What is this, you may ask? Have you ever looked at your pet and thought, I wonder, have you some hidden potential that I might like to release? If so, this is the Institute for you. We have dogs. that can breathe fire.
Whoa.
We have lawyers that were rabbits. We have
I thought the lawyers were a pet.
iguanas that are chefs. This is the place to unleash the hidden spirit person inside of your animal. We have guidance counselors, and we have sessions that you can sign up for to attend with your pet on different areas of interest. How can you identify an area of interest for your pet? Well, have we got a testimonial for you? Little Jimmy was a gerbil who really liked to tear up toilet paper rolls and just like would burrow into them, and that got Carol, Jimmy's owner, to think maybe Jimmy has a desire to be a plumber. And so she got him signed up for a bunch of different classes, and now Jimmy has his own plumbing firm.
Wow, amazing. Good job, Jimmy.
Happy endings all around. Contact the Institute for Unleashing Your Pet's Hidden Potential to see if your pet has hidden potential to unleash. And thank you for sponsoring this episode.
So, what makes this YA besides, I mean, we've said so many things already. Everything. It's like a classic, what you think of when you think of YA, like
canon YA.
Yeah, like save the world, you have a destiny beyond what you thought, you find out you're special.
Can't trust anybody, like you alone can accomplish this task.
Yeah.
And it's like something that's always been inside of you, and everything that you've ever experienced is leading up to this.
Yeah.
We don't know what it is, but it's leading up to it.
Why do you think that's such a big thing in YA? Do you think it's just like a parallel or contrast with the like everybody being like, well, you gotta grow up and accomplish great things? Like, do you think it's sort of like because you get that like feeling of like, I gotta grow up and change the world, then you have these heroes who are your age who are like changing the world,
right? And
like see this thing that's wrong with the world and fix it. Because I feel like young adult reader years of like late middle school or early high school is when you start to really see like, wow, the world sucks and most of the time I can't do anything about it. And that's really annoying because you see all these stories about like, be a hero, change the world.
Right.
And so I wonder if that's why it's such a popular thing, is because it's like, wow, I can actually fix all these things that are horrible about the world, and I'm special, and I'm not just gonna do the daily 9 to 5 and hate my job when I grow up.
Yeah, like all adults are now completely content.
Yeah.
Like worked themselves into a stupor.
They've settled.
Yeah, they've settled. I actually hadn't thought about that. I think part of it is like a lot of YAs have this like, there is something about you that makes you different from everybody else, and that is a good thing, and that makes you special.
Yeah.
And you're gonna use that somehow. So like Percy Jackson, you know, like all of the demigod kids are dyslexic and ADHD.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're dyslexic because you're used to reading Greek, and like you have ADHD because you need to be able to like fight. And it's like, these are things that are necessarily, or that are normally thought as bad. And it's like
because they're different.
Right. You're different and you stick out, but you were purposely made this way to save the world.
Yeah.
And like, that's just like a really cool thing to like,
it is,
believe when you're little.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh.
And to like tell kids.
Exactly.
And to still like have influence you of like, just because you're different and people don't understand how to interact with you doesn't mean that's bad or that you're wrong to be that way.
Right. It just means that you have to like find out how to use that to impact the world for the better.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really cool message. And I also think that you're totally right of like, when you're in middle school, like you are just starting to see the flaws of the world. You know, when you're like 6 and 7, everything is fantastic.
Yeah. Or it's just like vague bad things. Like bad things exist.
Yeah. But they don't really affect me because like my parents are like always going to protect me. And like,
yeah. Or like the bad things are like, oh, I can't go to this party.
Right.
I mean, depending on your experience. Some little kids have very terrible experiences. It's not like everyone's great. But if you're fortunate enough to have like a good childhood.
And like you're just starting to realize what is like normal and expected. Because like if you are like 6 and like terrible things are happening in your life, you don't normally recognize that those are bad.
You don't have a standard of what's normal.
Exactly. There's nothing to compare it to. And so now you're starting to see these other kids that have realized that their situations aren't normal and aren't like what they should be, and they're doing something about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh wow, like everybody has the power to like change things. I don't know, it depends on like the culture that you're in. But like some cultures are just kind of like, just be a kid right now. Don't try to grow up too fast. Don't try to be responsible.
Yeah.
Just like goof
have
around.
Fun.
Right, have fun. Let the adults take care of things. And like, I don't know, I like it when people don't settle for that, of just kind of like, okay, like just because the adults have been here around longer, it doesn't mean that they know, well, I mean, there's a lot of things that like they do know more about.
Yeah.
But like, if nobody's doing anything to change things, that doesn't mean that I can't try.
Yeah, just because I'm a kid, like in these stories, like you can still save the world.
Right.
Even if you are only 14.
Right.
Like there isn't that like, oh, like you're not allowed to have opinions on this thing yet.
Yes.
Because you're a child.
Right. Or even like when you get like the girls that like, are like doing this huge fundraiser or whatever, and like raise like thousands of dollars for this like orphanage in sub-Saharan Africa or something. And you're like, wow, they saw something that they wanted to do and they did it.
Yeah. And it's fighting against that, like, this is just the way life is.
Yes.
You just need to accept it. Which I think is really cool. And I always think it's funny when people are surprised that all these, like, young people are now growing up and being like, hey, this is something wrong with the world. We want to fix it. We're not going to settle. It's like, what did you expect with people reading The Hunger Games and Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, where kids can change things for the better?
Yeah.
Of course they're going to think that, which I think is a cool thing, that we're like, hey, your differences make you special. You can change things. You can fight for what you believe is right.
Right, and like don't think that you're at a disadvantage. Like these kids have no sphere of influence. They are like alone in this world and they're fighting for their lives, and eventually like Fang starts this blog and he's just like, hey, join us. We like can see that these people are evil and like they're trying to like impact the world in this terrible way. Like you gotta do something about it. And I know that there was like in the later books there was like Max was like became like an advocate for like recycling and stuff like that. It was like in like the back of the book it'd be like, this is how you can save the world.
Recycle.
And it was like, right, recycle, reduce, reuse, recycle.
That's
and it's
so
like
cute.
That's cool. Yeah, like give us like super like edgy role models that like care about the environment.
Yeah, that it's not like oh, that's so silly and like soft of you.
Exactly.
Like, you can be tough and also care about things. I think something that is interesting though is that so many YA stories, it's about one person doing a thing.
Yeah.
Because if the goal or part of the goal of the story is to be like, hey, we can change the world.
Right.
You can't do that as one person.
No. You
work together on a bigger scale.
Yes.
If we ever end up talking about the Hunger Games, which we probably won't because a billion people have talked about the Hunger Games, I think it's interesting, spoilers for the Hunger Games, because in the third book, I'll be real fast, like, Katniss doesn't really change things.
No.
She's not the thing that ends the war or anything. And I think that's interesting because, like, the main, like, conclusion, she's this one person, but she's not really, like, it's everyone doing stuff.
Yes.
And, yeah. So just in YA in general, like, I like when it's like, yeah, sure, you're the chosen one, but you need everyone else too.
Right. And it's less about what you can do on your own and more of like what you stand for.
Yeah.
That like drives other people to respond in the same way.
Yeah.
Because like she leads her family by being like, we are better than the whitecoats, and so we care about the lives of individuals, and so this is how we're going to behave, which that just like inspires them to be better people. And then like she tries to like inspire the world to be like, hey guys, like if you see bad things happening, like recycle. But like care about people.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah. It's also like the evil father figure.
Evil father figure is a classic. I am your father is a big thing.
Exactly. And like hidden father figure too, of like this is someone who's influential and like maybe like I loved him and now I hate him and now he's my dad.
Mentor figure turns out to be evil and also your dad.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot.
Orphans. I feel like there's so many orphans. Because then there aren't the, like, parents that kind of get in the way of the plot.
Right. Or, like, can, like, say something sensible.
Yeah.
Like, as I've said before, like, it's their mistakes that they're making, and there's nobody stopping them from making their mistakes, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, Max is like, I'm gonna go save this girl, and then finds out that the guy has a shotgun, and she gets shot, and now she's like, crap, well, now the girl that I was gonna go save is still suffering because I made this decision. And I don't know if they ever really make bad decisions, though. I don't know if the plot ever allows them to.
To make, like, a really bad, like, oh, you ruined everything.
Right. Or, like, even, like, if you didn't do this, it's not like something good came from it. Like, I think everything that they do that they think is a mistake, good things end up coming from it.
Yeah.
Or, like, important things end up coming from it, which is, like, definitely a, hey, like, don't be afraid to, like, follow your gut and, like, do the thing. Like, she, like, follows her gut a lot. Like, there's a lot of her, like, discussion with her gut.
Note to self and all that. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Anything else? I mean, YA, we already talked about Fang, edgy bad boy with a heart of gold.
Yeah.
It's a classic thing.
Classic.
Usually he has dark hair, often has, like, blue or green eyes that are very piercing. I think Fang has dark eyes, though. But, you know, just the generic guy that's kind of a jerk, but not really.
Right. Yeah. I have some quotes that I would like to share.
Amazing. Please share.
So these are, like, in, like, order of the book, but, so, like, they're very, very out of context. But one of them is, oh, yeah, okay, she has this really random moment where she's just like, I have a plan. Like, if they have a plan A and a plan B, and she's like, and it works, came to worst, I had a secret plan C. If it worked, everyone would escape and get free, except me. But that was okay. And it's, like, never comes to that. Like, that's not an issue. It's like,
we just know that she has that plan.
Yes. Oh, yeah, when Nudge, like, dive bombs Ari with the, like, spray paint, and it's, like, green and red, and she's like, between the red blood and the green paint, they look kind of Christmassy.
I love that. I love all the, like, snarky asides.
Or, like,
so
when
good.
Angel is, like, in the cage, and she's, like, really upset at the whitecoats, she's like, Angel wanted them all to burn in HE double toothpicks forever.
I love how much, like, fake swearing is in this. Like, I don't think there's, maybe once or twice there's actual swear words, but usually they just have, like...
Yes.
Rip-off
swear word here, yes.
Yeah.
Or, when Max is, like, her speech to the Martinezes is, you guys helped me, I said stiffly, and you didn't even know me. It would have been bad if you hadn't. How's that for eloquent? I sounded like freaking Tarzan.
Also, Tarzan is mentioned multiple times.
I feel like that was, like, one movie that they had.
Yeah, they were like, we're just gonna watch Tarzan over and over. Yeah, because, like, Nudge jumps off a cliff or something and says something about Tarzan, and then is like, whatever that means.
Right? Yes.
It's like, what?
What?
Do you guys know what Tarzan is, guys?
Or when they're driving, Nudge says, I didn't know a van could go on two wheels like that for so long.
Yeah, there's sort of this level of, like, snarky absurdity and everything. It's very entertaining. Like, the writing is very fun to read.
Yes.
It's really snappy, but then it has, like, oh, by the way.
Right. Or at some point they're talking about, like,
this.
females or something, and Fang's like, yeah, we all know how bloodthirsty females are. Dirty fighting and so on. I rolled my eyes. What a comedian. It's like, Fang gets these, like, moments fine. Where it's like, oh, he's, like, snarky, but he's quiet, but he's, like, caring. Oh, now my favorite. Holy, insert a swear word of your choice here, Fang said, stunned.
I love that. I love that because it's like, yeah, if they're, like, random kids that have unlimited access to the television, they probably know lots of swear words and have no concept of which ones are really bad.
Right.
But, like,
yeah,
it's also for kids.
Bonus round. I shot him the bird. Get it? I shot him the... Never mind.
I loved that. Like, see, I did a joke.
See, it's fine. You don't have to acknowledge it.
I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, that was funny.
It does a good job, like, getting Max's voice, like, in the narration when it's her.
It's, like, not the voice that a 14-year-old has, but that a 14-year-old wants. Like,
or, like, in their head, that's how they feel.
Wanted to be Max, you know?
She was so cool.
She was so cool. and like not afraid, but also didn't swear. And it's like she's like just the edgy that I can be.
Yeah.
So good. So good. I think that's that's the thing I remember from the books. Clearly, I don't remember the plot. I don't remember the events. I just remember, like, Max being, like, a total, like, boss at everything, and, like, her family constantly supporting her and loving her, and, like, all of them, like, evolving and growing.
Yeah.
And that's what made the book so good.
Yeah, it's you care about the characters, so you keep reading through the confusing plot.
Yes, yes.
Yep. I have books like that where I'm like, I love these people so much. I don't know what happened in the plot. I read the books 2 years ago. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's fine. Yes.
Do you want to talk about the movie?
Yes, I do. We watched the movie.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They had like $50 budgeted, and they spent it all on a glowing table in the lab.
Like, oh my gosh, there were so many things that didn't make sense.
They tried to be a little too artsy. Like,
yes.
Everything was, like, less saturated colors.
Mm-hmm.
And there were lots of, like, shots of birds.
Yeah, and, like, clouds and, like, montages of just, like, oh, we're just
slow
falling.
motion.
There was so much slow motion. Mary said it at one point that, like, if, like, all the slow motion was real time, the movie would be, like, 20 minutes.
Yeah, every fight scene is slow motion because they didn't choreograph, like, a long fight scene.
No.
It's like punch, kick, other person kicks, you block it, you do a flip.
Right.
That's it.
And, like, somebody ends up on the ground.
Yeah.
And that was the scene. Yeah. So, one, Fang was blonde.
Yeah. Or, like,
he didn't have dark hair.
Yeah, he had light hair.
Right, and he wasn't
sweet.
He was
sentimental.
And like sincere. Yeah, and sentimental. And it was like, this isn't the Fang that I signed up for. What is going on? And like Iggy wasn't the one who was good with bombs. It was Gazzy.
Yeah, Iggy was just there. His personality trait was blind, but actor not being great at acting blind.
Right. Yes. Because he would like look at things the right time, the right where,
like make eye contact with people.
Knew where people were.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I know blind people often will, like, turn towards the person they're talking to because it makes everyone else more comfortable and they're aware of, like, yeah, this is a social convention. But, like, he makes eye contact with people, like, tries to catch their eye and stuff.
Yeah. And you're like, I think you forgot something, that you're blind.
He also doesn't do much.
No. Nudge is, like, obsessed with fashion and, like, is just, like, angsty, like, more angsty than the rest of them. And, like,
you don't understand. I'm gonna
go off on my own.
I just want to buy this dress.
Right. And, like, shallow. And kind of like, I understand that we're all in danger, but, like, I want this coat. You're like, okay.
And also none of them look the right ages, except maybe Gazzy.
Maybe Gazzy, yeah. Angel looks older than Gazzy, and Angel also isn't, like, sweet and cute. She just, like, doesn't say anything. It's kind of scary.
Yeah,
and
she's,
also
like,
she
creepy
can project thoughts.
Yeah, she can just, like, message, like, telepathically.
Which, like, makes sense why she doesn't talk that much. But, like, still, she's supposed to be the, like, like, she's, like, Max's baby. And she's, like...
Yeah, like, super sweet little kid.
Mm-hmm. And, like, yeah, very innocent and, like, just, like, loves everything. Also, oh my gosh. The amount of times she just got, like, picked up by an evil person and just was kind of like, ugh.
Like, oh no.
I'm fighting so hard. Child, bite, kick, scream, something.
Ari just feels like a generic werewolf. He's like a whiter version of Jacob from Twilight. Yes, he was. He had, like, long, luscious, flowing hair. His hair was gorgeous. It was in the slow-mo scenes, it was just, like, flowing around. But they just gave him, like, fangs and made his face kind of hairy.
Yeah, they also gave him, like, this scar.
He has a scar. That's how they know it's him. They're like, it's Ari. He has a scar.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny. It was like, oh yeah, like, I think it was Ari. How do you know? And the girl just, like, draws a line from her eyebrow to her nose. Yeah, just like that's. And they're all like, "Oh yeah, oh okay, it's got to be." Ari was also a jerk. Yeah, like, he was a mean kid. Yes, he was like, like it didn't do a good job of being like, "Oh, like I feel sorry for you." It was like, "Oh, I brought scissors to Max's dog cage, and I'm gonna stab her." Yeah, like what? Yeah, he was like a psychopath child. Yeah. not kidding, because that's how he ends up getting the scar. Max, like, grabs the scissors from him and, like, slashes him with them instead of being killed.
Yeah.
Also, the school and, like, their dog crates are, like, lion cages. Like, I've seen...
they're huge. They can, like, stand up.
Full-grown felines. Exactly. With headspace.
Yeah.
And, like, they're nowhere near close to each other. They are, like...
No.
They're in a, like, solitary room, and they're, like, a semicircle of just them.
Yeah. There's also nothing at the school.
No.
Like, it's just empty hallways everywhere. There's, like, a room with a computer.
Yes.
And a room with some cages. There's a room with a computer and a map on the wall.
And the map.
Like a world map, because that's how you make it look science-y, I guess.
Yes, the world. And then there's also this, like, table that Angel was, like, lying on for some weird reason. And we're like, what?
Yeah, that glows. We don't know why.
Yeah, that glows. That's where the $50 went.
They also don't go to New York ever.
Mm-mm.
They plan at the end of the movie they're gonna go to New York.
Yes, they stop the book, like, halfway. Like, Max gets her first, like, attack, but, like, it wasn't even that. She just kind of, like, falls over, and then there's this, like, montage of shots that we saw in the film.
Yeah, it was like, just, like, replay the movie at 2 times speed.
Yeah. I was like, what's going on?
It's like one of those, like, oh, it's Shrek, but every time they say this word, it gets faster. It's like one of those.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Very funny. And then they also just completely changed the events of it. Most of the movie was very different. Like, they took the entire tone and switched it. Like, it was kind of like what they did with, like, Avatar, The Last Airbender. Instead of being like, oh, it's, like, kind of goofy, and, like, there's sarcasm and, like, funness. And it's like, no, everyone's
just, like, everything is serious. And stares a lot.
Right. Also, their wings, like, aren't always there.
It's like Wolverine.
Yes. They, like...
Where they, like, have scars
break
on their back.
the skin and, like, shoot out of them every time they use them.
Also, their wings are really lame. They need to be bigger.
Yeah, they're tiny.
They're like little
pigeon
wings.
things. Yeah, it's like, that's not gonna hold a human.
And they just sort of flap just vaguely up and down.
Yeah.
Like, not how bird wings actually move.
Right. Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah, I just couldn't get over that, like, Fang was, like, super nice, and was just like, you look tired.
He was like, I care about
Here's
you, Max.
water.
Here, have some water.
Yeah, and you're like, no. And they don't do the hand thing.
Oh, they don't do the thing where they stack their hands.
Yes, that is not a part of it at all. It would have been so simple to just be, it's like, did you guys even read the book?
They were just like, kids with wings? Cool,
I got it. Sweet. And one werewolf? Okay. I know exactly how to do this.
Just one.
Yes.
The rest are just, like, SWAT team guys.
Right. And it's just, like, oh, like, yes. It was just very lame the entire... It was, like, there was 20 people. And then they made, like, they had 20 people and made the movie. So, like, all the fight scenes were, like, pretty lame. And, like, there's one where they just, like, didn't even pretend to have a fight scene. Like, Ari just comes in and, like, puts some things in his ears and then, like, plays this, like, high-frequency noise that, like, puts them all on their knees. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, and he's like, haha, can't hear you, but...
Sorry, what? What were you saying?
Yeah.
I got something in my
And everybody's,
ears.
Like, cool costume with, like, sleeveless shirts. And, like, band tees. Ari has a jacket with a chain on it.
Yes, and they've all got, like, these, like, wrist things that are, like,
oh, yeah,
sleeveless...
like, fingerless gloves.
Yes, fingerless gloves. Yeah.
Honestly, though, if I was watching this in, like, middle school or high school, I would have thought they looked so cool.
Right.
I still thought they looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, costume design was very edgy and cool and punk kind of vibe. But didn't fit the tone of, like, awkward teenagers who've never been outside.
Yeah, and, like, Max is supposed to be responsible, but she, like, eats cookies for breakfast. And it was like, 1 cookie's a snack, 2 cookies a meal. You're like, what?
And Fang's like, no, you can't do that. You have to eat a full balanced breakfast. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, Max. Don't forget.
Don't forget. But then, oh my gosh, the first scene is, like, Max wakes up and goes and to like the bathroom, and then there's just like Fang shirtless in a towel, like having taken a shower,
brushing his teeth or whatever, and she's like,
and she's just like, and he's just like, what? And you're, and as the audience, you're like, what? You live with this boy?
Yeah, like you're probably just annoyed that he took the bathroom before you could.
Right? Yeah.
Like that's her thing. She's like, oh, I gotta remind him.
Right? Exactly.
Like I saved the world, so I can get the bathroom first. Exactly. Like in the book, she mentions that.
She does. Yeah. I feel like I saved the world. Like don't even get like first dibs at the bathroom.
Yeah, but in this, there's a lot. Like the romantic tension is definitely there from the beginning.
Too thick. They lay it on way too thick.
Yeah.
In the books, they kind of do a little bit of it of being like, wow, I can't believe that Fang and I don't even have to like talk to each other in order to communicate. I just know exactly what he's thinking.
Yeah, but it's less of like mysterious stranger that I'm sharing longing glances with, and more of like, oh, this is my friend who, oh, maybe I like them.
Exactly. Like now we're 14.
I'm personally a much bigger fan of friends to lovers than like mysterious stranger that I'm suddenly swooning over.
Yes. Yes. Aw, that reminds me of a book that we need to read later.
We'll figure it out later.
We'll get there. But yes.
Speaking of.
Yes, we're done. Book, movie. Hey, if you want to watch the movie, go for it. If you don't,
have fun. It's fun to like watch because it's bad.
Yes.
No offense to the movie makers.
No, they like made a movie, which is impressive.
You tried. You made a movie.
Making movies is hard. The people acting weren't terrible. They like cast attractive people, so it's like fine.
Yeah. It just didn't live up to the book.
Right. If you hadn't read the books, it'd be kind of like, okay, this isn't a great movie, but it's not terrible.
It's like a fun action movie.
Exactly. Yeah. But yes, what's next, Mary?
Next week, we're going to be reading Six of Crows, which is a more contemporary YA. Neither of us read it in our childhood, but I've read it before. Imani has not.
So I'll be going in blind. I'm excited.
I'm very excited as well. It's super fun. My pitch for it is always fantasy heist, so that'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's a bit more like broadly read, I feel like, than a lot of the ones we've done.
Less niche.
Yeah, that's a good term for it. But yeah, we're going to be doing that next episode, whenever
next
that
month,
is.
At some point.
Next month, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, check it out. You can follow us on Twitter. Tweet us recommendations, or if you're reading along with the book, or your favorite parts, things you'd like to see us do in the future. At It's Your Book Club.
Yeah.
That's our Twitter, right?
Yes, that is the Twitter.
I run the Twitter. I should know this.
Yeah. Please feel free to like interact with us on Twitter. We're new at this, and we're starting to try to get better at it. So, like,
yeah,
leave us your comments. Tips on actually doing, like, how to do a podcast, also welcome.
Definitely.
And if you're one of my friends, or one of our friends, and you're watching this and you want to, like, call us or text us and say, hey, you did this thing and it was awful, also very welcome.
Feel free.
Also, shout out to Brendan Wallace for making our awesome music.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic job. Eventually, we will pay you. Maybe. I'm gonna cut that out. I also thank you so much to Edric Yu for doing all of our editing.
Thank you so much, Edric. So that's it.
That was it.
See you guys next time. Thank you for reading along with us or listening to us ramble.
And now you have further insight into my childhood. So
yes, thanks. Submit to Parnassus.
Submit to Parnassus.